Welcome to the Rocky Road Podcast, brought to you by Rockbusters, with your host, Dennis Wager. Dennis is a best-selling author and an expert in demolition, rock, and concrete breaking, as well as a professional blaster. He is also president of Rockbusters Incorporated, along with his son, Brian. On the podcast, you'll hear exciting stories of how these challenge types of rock and concrete jobs are done. You'll learn about the uses of expanding grout and explosive devices. But furthermore, you'll hear about some of the hurdles and struggles entrepreneurs and business owners have had along the way, how they got started, and how they broke through the obstacles and found the path to success. Along with that, some insight for young people and people wanting to get into the industry. So listen in. I hope you enjoy the show. Now, here's Dennis Wager.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the show. I want to introduce my guest, Emily Bassett, today. She has a company called Start 'em Up Marketing, and I've been personally working with her for about the last year, and she's done an amazing job, very smart, very talented. And yeah, welcome to the show, Emily.
Yeah, good to be here, Dennis. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. It's great. It's great. Glad you could join us. So yeah, maybe just let's start off with a little bit of your background. How did you come about this journey?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I actually originally got a degree in forensic science, which some would say is much more exciting than what I do now. But yeah, I thought I was really gonna be focused on crime. I just found it was like very interesting, like a very CSI fan. And it was something that I thought, how can I get involved with this? And it was either like the police, the lawyers, or the forensic science. So that's kind of where I chose. But then essentially right after graduation, I went and backpacked Europe and just opened up the world for me, I think, which was very exciting. But school doesn't really ask you like what type of life you want to have. So suddenly I was like, if I'm in a forensics job, I'm stuck in a little town, and I wanted to work for RCMP. So it was going to be some northern Saskatchewan RCMP station, for who knows how long. And it was just like, there was starting to be a bit of doubt in my mind, but my thought was, I'm young, I'll just travel for a bit and then I'll go and do my career.
Yeah.
So anyways, yeah, so I was out in Europe for a while, and then I actually got a job on a cruise ship. So then I went to Australia for a while, and my application to the RCMP actually was going through. So they were like, okay, well, come in for this thing. And I'm like, I'm on a beach in Fiji, sorry,
Yeah.
So I just kept deterring, like putting it off. And it just got to the point where it was like, what am I doing? I think if this was like what I was supposed to be doing, I would feel like I have to go back and I have to get this done and everything. So then that's when it kind of opened up this idea of remote working. I can definitely be a bit stubborn where it's like, if I want to go somewhere, I'm going to go. If I can't if I can't get vacation, well, I guess I'll find a new job when I'm back. You know what I mean? Like, not to invalidate how hardworking I am. Like, I'm definitely focused on the job at hand, but I'm also like, this is my life. Like, I'm not gonna just, just be stuck in one spot and not be able to like live life to the fullest. So I found like I would never want to put myself in a position where a job did need me 36 hours around the clock in a specific location. Now I have a job that needs me 36 hours around the clock, but I could be wherever.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so that was definitely like a rocky road, figuring out like a complete career change. But yeah, so it was actually really funny. I was working at a cafe. So like I did some waitressing and, made good money, especially in tourist towns. And I thought there was a mandatory staff meeting, and I went to the staff meeting, and then it turned out it was like a marketing meeting, and I was just like completely in the wrong place. I was not supposed to be there. And so once I figured out, like, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm not supposed to be here. Like, I'll go. And they were like, no, like, stay. Like, we're always happy for like more ideas. And they really started breaking down like the marketing of this cafe, like what they were going to do to like get more traffic and what the plan was. And I just thought it was fun. And I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. So I ended up just volunteering, I just helped with stuff. And then it was like every business suddenly needed marketing help, and there were so many
Yeah, I know.
opportunities to like help businesses. So then I was like, okay, well, let's, get something to back me up. So then I just did like an online degree and got my degree in digital marketing. And then I actually was working for a company. So like fast forward a little bit, I was in Denmark at that time. So I was kind of good. I could just do marketing over there. But then.
So how old would you have been over there?
Yeah, at that point. So I graduated university at 22. So probably 25, 26.
Okay.
Yeah. So, because what year is it right now? I would have been 26, I guess, which is, so still just like figuring out my way and working. Like, I am really glad I worked in a marketing role for like a larger, like, almost a corporate sense, because you got to figure out, you just got to learn a lot rather than just
things. Yeah.
Yeah. If you start your own business, there's so much to learn, but it's sort of, and there's new things to learn, but I think you kind of have to know like where your place is in that like whole business role as well, right? So, I had some friends though that worked for like Google and stuff, and it was so funny to look at them. One of the girls' jobs was just to do one piece of one newsletter. That was her whole job.
Yeah.
One piece of the Google newsletter. Yeah. And I'm sitting here with like small business owners where it's like
so many hats.
100%, right? So it's been interesting to see like the dynamic all over, but it's definitely just where I like found my passion and absolutely decided it was something I was going to do. And then there was sort of series of events that unfolded, and then I ended up doing it on my own. And then once I was doing it on my own, it was the same thing. I was like, well, I'll have a few clients, it'll be small. And then thankfully was able to build this really awesome team. And now we are able to support sort of businesses of much bigger size. And obviously that's how we got connected, which is amazing.
Yeah. So how did you go from that, just starting small, to the growth of it?
Yeah. I mean, I like to think my personality just really attracts the right people.
Well, of course it does, yeah.
But yeah, no, so I had, like referrals has been the strongest thing.
Okay.
Which is quite cool. So I had picked up small jobs just like from the internet, people looking for this and people looking for that. And at the time I was actually working for Disney. I was working in television with like security and stuff.
Yeah.
Totally different world. I've done lots of things.
So you've done lots of stuff. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. I was a first aid instructor. Like I technically still have my certs, and I used to be a lifeguard. So they needed so many more health and wellness staff when like COVID and everything hit. So that's how I ended up in television. It was through another connection. So that was a funny one. But anyways, while I was working there, I was just doing this on the side. And then suddenly, like, because I was offering social media management out of the gate. Like that's what I knew really well. I had a lot of experience from it from the past, but I had a pretty good eye at looking at like businesses as a whole. So I think what happened was I had made these like little mini packages that was essentially like, I recognized you're trying to juggle 27 hats right now. I'm going to take like 5 of those off you. You know what I mean? Like I will, my little tagline was like your personal CMO, right? And I still use that today because I do like to give the feeling that like we're on your team. Like we are an extension of your team. It's not like a contractor that you can only, get a hold of once a month or something like that. It's sort of like, you're like, this is my marketing team. Like we have lots of people that don't even identify the separation of, like a contracted team if they were presenting their team, right? It's just kind of like, this is us. um,
Yeah. And how do you kind of keep on top of each one individually? Like, how do you know what each one's doing, and how do you know where to go with it and how to promote them the best way?
yeah. I mean, I think that's definitely been so. Just for the other thing. So essentially, once there was enough people, I had met up with Connor, so my business partner. So he actually had a small company called AR Marketing, and he did websites and
Okay.
ads and stuff. So he's the tech side, and then I had that creative side. So once we could like join together, we were able to offer like a real full service because I that
Cool.
wasn't my wheelhouse when we started, right? So anyways, once we had sort of the two sides of the pot, we were both
Hmm.
able to leave our full-time jobs and make this our full-time job. So then as we grew, it's always been a balance of how do we give this like full service attention to multiple people without just being like their staff, right? And I think it has been the fact that we never put like too many account managers on an account.
Okay.
So for example, someone that has a full service like thing, like we do a lot with you, we do like website and ads and stuff, you kind of touch lots of different people on the team, so
Yeah.
you already see how different people have different roles in it. But
Different roles, right? Yeah.
yeah, so it's like, so then there's a whole part of the team that you've never met that other people might only meet that piece of the
Oh, okay.
team, right?
Okay.
So
Interesting.
it has been like, I do think another like hurdle will be, Connor and I have made ourselves such the face of the business, but making sure that we can filter all of our knowledge through our staff to the fullest and have them be the ones having that constant conversation will help us like to actually grow beyond what we
Okay.
currently are. But it's all like we're definitely not like, we're trying to consistently not bite off more than we can chew, because our biggest like we never want to be the company that's like, oh wow, we stretched ourselves too far that no one's getting good service,
Good
right? Like
service. Yeah. Yeah.
the
Yeah. I
whole
can see that's the pitfall to watch out for, right?
totally, yeah,
Yeah. And that's
totally,
really where you got to be careful and kind of manage what you're taking on.
yeah. But it's
And
so
and I'm experiencing the same thing. It's just like we get a lot of work and then we get no work, and then it's like, okay, well, what do you do with all the people when they're not working? So
totally. And I completely feel you, like with the like there's high seasons and low seasons, and marketing feels it too, with like Christmas is like a high season. So like
yeah,
right now it's not a high season, but it's like, but we have to prep for the high season. But what if this high season's not as high? Or what if,
right,
like there's all these
yeah,
things you're
exactly,
like constantly balancing, to make sure you're not over leveraging, but make sure you're not under supplying. So
yeah,
um
yeah, yeah.
definitely a world to navigate. The very first year, I think, was just hard. And then now it's like there's new challenges, but there's not, it's like, I don't know, the business stuff at least has been done once.
Right. And how many years has it been now since you started?
3.
3 years. Okay, well, that's great.
Yeah. So,
And then what are
yeah.
your goals? Like, where do you want to go in the next 3?
Yeah. So we're definitely expanding a little bit more on services right now. So when we like just started, it was social media, and then we had social media and website, and then social media, website, and ads. And right now we've got the email marketing and the SEO also. So we've got that
Yeah.
like full service. Um, the 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 last two like expansions that were not, it's sort of interesting, and I mean, you're free to tell me your thoughts on this as well, but we find that once you build a relationship with a client, it's it's nice to be able to consistently help them and collaborate and like create a network to help them. So what we find sometimes is we can't do everything. So you'll refer someone or you'll connect someone, and sometimes those referrals just aren't great. You think that they are. You've seen
Mhm.
them do previous work, and it just doesn't play out. So we've kind of been experimenting with like, can we have someone for PR in-house? Like, can we have it, because we have the copywriters for the press releases, we have the connections, all we would need is add a person that's dedicated to actually building those PR connections. So does that make more sense to put it in-house and make sure it's still a dedicated service, but and have that person really trained, and then that person can develop a team if there's the need for it? Or do we, partner up with people and sort of expand that way? So there's definitely like I'm such a fan of partnerships, and like it's not that it would eliminate that. There's just been a few times that hasn't played out. So it's kind of like being able to help the team and know the expectations from like a Stardom Up network, is kind of something that can be quite beneficial. So that's kind of like one of the steps we're navigating. And then in the very beginning, we were just focused on like startups, right? It was
okay. I guess that's where the name comes from. That makes sense now.
Start them up, yeah. But the idea now is that, if you need a boost, right? It's like you need a startup often, right? It's not that if your marketing's kind of like not working for you, then you need to like boost it up. So that's where we are like really focused on finding new things you can do. And because we look at the picture as a whole, we can be like, okay, this service isn't really working for you. Let's double down on this one instead, right? So it's like if you were to just hire an ads company, they're never going to tell you your ads aren't working, right? They're never going to say, oh, maybe you should try SEO. They're just going to constantly circle around ads. So so that's kind of something we really try to focus on. For B2B companies specifically, like you're kind of interesting because you could be B2B, but you also have that consumer side for you. So you've got so many things that can be, and I know you're always like, okay, what new path should we test? And we're just waiting for that train to just go flying down the track. But yeah, so for B2B though, a lot of people will be like, I need to double down on social media. Meanwhile, social media is rarely when these like true business conversations will happen, right? It's like oftentimes people will be Googling the solution and then it'll be that email conversation or that LinkedIn, like it's like a more nurtured conversation that will actually see those like big deals go through. It's not going to be an Instagram post that closes a $20,000 deal, right? So there's been like sorry, go on.
How do you choose between like where to put the person's money, like between like Google Ads or Instagram or Facebook, like what platform, like how do you do that?
Totally. Okay, so Google is all about if people are searching for your solution. So if I need a mechanic, like I was just saying before the call, my washing machine gave out on me the other day. So I'm not going to go onto Instagram and hope that on my feed, and a guy shows up that does that. I'm going to go to Google and I'm going to search. So as the guy who does that, he wants to show up at the top, right? Because I'm not going to page 25. I'm going page 1, maybe page 2, right? I'm going to find my local guy, going to get him to come. I mean, I actually fixed it all myself, so don't even worry about it. But good old me too. But yeah, so that's a situation where someone's searching for you. Even in marketing, like we find for us, that is the more common one as well. It's people searching for how do I increase my, appearance online, and all of that stuff. And then on Facebook and Instagram is when, and social in general, is when you need to convince someone of something. So for example, like shoes. Do I need another pair of shoes? No. Do I want another pair of shoes because I just saw these like amazing shoes on my Instagram feed? Maybe, right? So that's why e-commerce, like especially with like smaller priced items, you really see those like merchant ads just like blowing up. And things like that. Other times would be like if there's an education curve or an adoption curve. So someone that's like invented something. Like people aren't going to Google for your invention. It doesn't, they don't know it, right? So
makes sense,
social ads can play a better part in that because you're kind of like piquing someone's interest as they scroll through their feed, and then you're playing on whatever pain point they had, and then showing them this new innovative thing to solve their problem.
Yeah, so that's great. So I like that explanation, and it's kind of what we've been doing too. And Google Ads, for us have been working.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really, I think, after this far along now, just kind of really taking another look at it, and I'm sure this must be the same for everybody out there, is you're always kind of looking at what's working and what's not, and going through those analytics and just saying like, oh, I wonder my phone didn't ring. Like, look at it here. How do we fix that, right?
Totally. Yeah, we do try to like pride ourselves on being a data-driven company. So when in doubt, we go back to the data, right? So one thing that can be super difficult for people is understanding where your hole is, right? So it's like the opposite of what you guys do. If somebody finds a rock and they want to remove it, for us, you're just like, where's the hole? Because we're falling out somewhere and we don't know where. So that's something that we can help people to like either set up the tracking. So like you have all your tracking set up. So we can say, okay, well, we got 5,000 people to this page, but then they didn't make it to this page, or they didn't ask for a quote, or they didn't do whatever, so what can we learn from that?
Right.
Whereas the opposite problem is, okay, 5,000 people aren't coming in. So that's like sort of that top level. It's like, how can we be more active in the world, or can we change our messaging, or can we change our visuals, or can we change something to bring more people in? So sometimes people are actually bringing a ton of people in, but the conversion point isn't making it. Maybe there's even a form that's broken, maybe there's an incorrect phone number. Like sometimes people are just like, oh, I have no traffic, where if you really look into it, no, it's a different spot in your funnel that they're actually falling off. So
right. Yeah. That's a good point too.
Yeah. For business owners, that can definitely be like you just like, you think what's going wrong, and then you double down on trying to fix that without having like data to back it up. And that's hard. Like, why would you know that is something with your website, like, so.
I know. Yeah. And even for past experience, like it's always been, like it will do advertising, with Google, for instance, and then you get kind of accustomed to a certain amount of phone calls. And then it's always like, oh, hey, the phone's quiet. Like, what's going on? And then you start looking and go, oh, this is needing fixed, or this is needing fixed.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Knowing your waves as well is super important. Like, so we do hear from clients, like lots of times people look month over month, right? Whereas it's actually the year over year that oftentimes can be more representative, because maybe it's, you think of like school stuff, right? Like I sell school supplies. Nobody's thinking about school supplies in July. They're throwing them out,
You're right. Exactly.
So it's sort of like, well, obviously July is going to be slower than June, and certainly slower than September, right? So it's like, if we, like with a marketing team, you can plan for the lows and say, okay, we need to think of something new, because we know people aren't going to search for this during this month. Like everyone's at their cottages. They're not doing it. Maybe even yourself, you were like, okay, let's do an event, right? Like, let's do something fun, have a drink or have a get together or whatever. And that'll be just a way to like break up this month. Whereas, so that's something to know, like where your industry lows are and how you can try and combat them, and then being really prepped for your industry highs so that you can be the top person that's getting all those leads while the leads are more typically coming in.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And
I guess it's like we're talking about, it's kind of the whole platform, right? Like looking at everything as a whole. Managing it. But that's what I found kind of interesting, because there's so many options out there now, and I mean, I remember like long ago where there was yellow pages, and, I spent a ton of money in the yellow pages, and then it didn't work. It's like, oh my God, like the phone's got to ring this many times a day and it doesn't.
Totally.
You have this bill, and also not only you have the bill, but you can't change the ad once it's in there. It's in there for the year.
I know. Print. I know.
Yeah.
Print is like being a more digital centric person, I think there is clients that'll be like, oh my gosh, this went out with a spelling error. And I'm like, okay, it's fixed, but like the
Yeah.
instinct is this is wrong. Whereas digital, you can fix it so much, but like a lot of people will put our content into print now. And I'm always like,
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
like,
Well, yeah,
not
we
that
just
it's,
did an article in a magazine, and it was the same. It was like you got to really think about it and look at it a few times because it is going to be there for a year.
Whereas if you have a blog on your website, you can even
Yeah,
update
just
it when you
update it.
get
Yeah.
new information, right? So it's
Yeah, it's funny. We were just talking about that same thing with an association called the CSDA, which is the Concrete Sawing and Drilling Association, this morning. And they have conventions and board meetings and things, and they have a magazine called Concrete Openings.
mhm.
And they were saying how popular the printed version is. Like every time they have a board meeting, on the table outside in the lobby, they always have a handful of magazines, and everybody's like, "Oh my god, I just love that! I just love the printed versions." Like I think there's always going to be
Oh,
a number of people that still like that. I mean, everybody is obviously digital, but it's almost like it's gone so extreme with digital. It's kind of like, oh, look
yeah.
at that! There's something printed. I'm going to keep it now.
I think that there's definitely something to be said about where print still works. We are, even though we're a digital agency, like we are not against print in any way. We were recently just talking about something where there's like a handout for schools, and I'm like, you can't even, you can't even target children with ads. Like it's not something you're allowed to do. So
Right.
having a printout and getting it out to the schools, like, if everyone approves of that process, is super good. Parents are very used to getting handouts in the backpack and stuff like that. So there's
Yeah,
so
exactly.
that's like a perfect example. And honestly, like in your world too, where it's lots of contractors and stuff like that, like they're on the, like, more stereotypically, you're on the internet just to like scroll through memes and this and that after like a hard day of work, or
Yeah.
you're not
Or
there.
at work where like nobody ever does that.
No,
Of
exactly.
course,
So you're,
not.
yeah, so you're not necessarily going to be the main one clicking on my social post, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of like, and even like we've played around with the YouTube strategy because there's quite a lot there, like these fun YouTube videos and helicopter, and like, there's
Mhm.
a lot that is done there, and there's a lot of evolution that could be done. So
Yeah, that's awesome. So, what would you say, or what would you recommend to young people or people wanting to get into this industry? What
yeah.
advice could you give them?
So my advice is definitely to find something you're passionate about. I think that there's a lot of people that really like the like get rich quick plan, or they read about how you can make a ton of money being a blogger or something like that. And I think absolutely anything is possible, but you have to have like passion for it. You have to, it's not easy. I mean, you've gone through lots of stuff. I've gone through lots of stuff,
Yeah.
and you're going to have to need that passion to back you up when times get hard. And I think that if you don't enjoy it, you're gonna hate it because it is
Yeah.
harder having your own business. And if you only kind of like it, just go work for someone else and do it, because then you can turn it off at 4 o'clock,
At 4 o'clock. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
and walk away.
Yeah,
So,
that's really the difference. Yeah. So, would you say
yeah.
like your trip to Europe kind of really opened your eyes to what's possible and changed your route?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I think yeah, so I've been to 29 countries and I'm 29 years old, so I got to hit one more before my 30th birthday. So I'm like
Okay.
very very big on traveling, and I think that the fact that I could work that job anywhere was definitely something. My question though for like young people these days is literally just what life do you want? Not just what job do you want, but can that job actually, complement the life you really want? So, and I think that's not asked in
That's some good
schools.
advice.
Yeah, I just think you got to think about
Yeah, I
that.
think exactly. That's fantastic. I mean, there's a lot of things that are not kind of talked about or taught in schools, and I think that's one of them too.
Yeah,
And even at any age, I mean, you can kind of
it's true.
evaluate your life and go, where do I want to be? Where do I want my life to go? Right. And I think a lot of that, and I actually, I was telling somebody last night, look at two things. One is like, what are your short-term goals and what are your long-term goals?
Totally.
And I've always, I looked at the long-term goals and okay, I can accomplish this or work towards this. But what I do in the short term is going to, have a direct impact on things now and also in the long term. So it's good to look at both, right? And then you kind of throw in like, what's my low lying fruit there? What can I grab quickly? What can I make some money on? Put some cash in a bank. Look at focusing on the short term goals and move it along. But just having that direction, having the look like you imagine you're flying overhead in a plane at 30,000 feet, like you got really, really like 3 seconds to explain where you're going, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's so common. People get stuck in the weeds.
Absolutely.
But that's awesome. Well, that was really great. I appreciate you coming on the show. It was good to talk with you, and I appreciate all of your information. And it was great.
Absolutely, anytime.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you would like to be a guest on a future episode and tell us your story, visit our website at www.rockbusters.com. If you have a project and would like to learn more about our products, or if you're interested in partnering with us and becoming a distributor, give us a call. Thanks again. We appreciate your support.